Hey everyone, I'm Kepples, and today let's talk about the Drippler Crippler. You know, the launchable flail that shoots out a projectile that you have a slight chance of obtaining from a fishable hard mode Blood Moon enemy. We'll look at a unique way to use this weapon, how good it fares against bosses, and whether it's worth getting. The Drippler Crippler, much like other flails, has a lot of ways to use the weapon. You can spin the flail in a circle by holding the use button down. The spin deals 60% of the flail's base damage. You can launch the flail by letting go of the use button. This will make it fully extend and then retract itself. And lastly, while the flail is being launched, you can hold the use button down again to make the flail end fall down to gravity and deal half the base damage upon contact. If the flail falls too far, or if the player moves too far away from where the flail part is hanging, it will retract automatically towards the player. Once you let go of the use button again once the flail is affected by gravity, the flail will retract back towards the player as usual. You can retract the flail sooner by clicking the use button while the flail is extending. This means you could theoretically retract the flail as soon as it flies out. The Drippler Crippler will also launch a Thornball projectile out once it goes to retract. This projectile deals half the base damage of the main Drippler Crippler flail. It can bounce once and pierce two enemies, disappearing on the second. Due to its slow projectile speed, it often hits the same enemy twice. With the retraction spam from earlier, you can shoot the Drippler Crippler projectile multiple times a second. The only limit is the time it takes to rewind up, and your ability to not get carpal tunnel from hitting the use button that quickly. Now let's go see how the different methods of the Drippler Crippler fare against bosses and other weapons of a similar vein. We'll mainly focus on full extension and spam methods, but the other two methods of damage will be tested sometimes. I found that the Drippler Crippler generally works better with a tank setup, since it allows me to mostly stay still, which then causes the bosses to be more still, which makes it easier to aim the Drippler Crippler. Of course, a tank setup also benefits some of the other weapons tested, especially the Pow and the Fetid Baghnakhs. We'll first start with the boss that is vulnerable to piercing weapons, the Destroyer. For sake of consistency, I won't be attacking the coil for these tests since the spawning location of the coil is too inconsistent. But with that out of the way, the full extension Drippler Crippler strategy melts the metallic worm in its competition. The spam strategy is considerably less effective here, since the main projectile hits less segments per launch. The return of the flail projectile only dealing half damage with the spam method is also a factor. The spin attack isn't that great, but can still deal decent damage, but little reason to use any other method over a full extension. Other weapons such as the Fetid Baghnakhs and the Pow cannot quite reach the efficiency of the Drippler Crippler. Also, let's not skim over what happens when the Drippler Crippler is used against a coil destroyer. A few attacks with a more damage-oriented setup can instantly kill it. Some of the other weapons also do very well against coil destroyer, but not on the same level as Drippler Crippler. Next we have a more single target based boss, Skeletron Prime. The Drippler spam strategy works better here compared to the full extension, since the extra projectiles make up more of the damage, and it nearly catches up to the post-Duke weapon Flairon, since their bubbles get distracted with Skeletron Prime's parts, which don't need to be destroyed to beat this boss. Using the spam strategy here can be risky, as even with a tank setup, Skeletron Prime's head deals a fair amount of damage. But the difference between using this and a more distance based option in DPS does make this worth it. The twins is a bit of a problem for the tank setup, due to Spasmatism's Cursed Flame debuff still dealing a ton of damage, therefore making it more difficult to approach the twins with the Drippler Crippler spam strategy. Flairon is more in a realistic spot since now it can only damage parts of the boss that need to be killed. The damage increase from being considerably more risky with Drippler Crippler is not nearly as much as before, making using something like the banana ranks against the twins a more likely and less risky choice. Returning to the Destroyer, I wanted to compare Drippler Crippler's performance against some weapons available after killing one of the other mechanical bosses, and things is still pretty much uncontested for Drippler Crippler. The other weapons, while good, still can't quite compete with Drippler Crippler or even the Fetid Baghnakhs against this boss. Now Terraria is pretty much the perfect boss to showcase the feats of single target Drippler Crippler. The constant barrage of the Drippler Crippler Thornballs, and greater amounts of contact with the full damage flail part against a boss that pretty much does not move at all once it reaches the player, works absolute wonders. The Drippler Crippler manages to rank better than both True Swords, but falls just short of beating Fetid Baghnakhs. And while you'll need to spam click to achieve this DPS of Drippler Crippler, all you need to do to achieve the same of Fetid Baghnakhs is by holding the use button down and watch the plant get eviscerated by auto swing. Regardless, both of these weapons do amazing here. Last is Golem, which stays mostly still and is basically a single target boss, though theoretically the spam method should work wonders here, but this is where the Drippler Crippler just falls off statistically, as unsurprisingly the pre-mech weapon struggles to compete with the post-planetary weapons. It was able to beat the Flower Power though, another flail that shoots projectiles in some capacity, but little reason to use this weapon against Golem though. Why not use it to farm for some post-planetary weapons instead? Speaking of which, the Drippler Crippler is mighty effective against all sorts of events, such as the Pirate Invasion, Hard Mode Blood Moon, Hard Mode Goblin Army, the Tier 2 version of the Old One's Army, and the previously mentioned Eclipse event. It isn't quite as good for the Pumpkin Moon or Frost Moon. It can do a decent job at clearing out enemies here earlier on. Now, is it worth farming for this weapon? The Drippler Crippler drops on the Blood Eel with a 12.5% chance in all difficulties, and the Blood Eel has a 22.5% chance of being chosen when fishing up a Blood Moon enemy. It is also a 1 in 3 chance to fish up any Blood Moon enemy when using the Chumcaster, and a 1 in 6 chance without using the Chumcaster, which would be around a 1 in 106 chance to obtain a Drippler Crippler from every cast of a Chumcaster, and a 1 in 213 chance without a Chumcaster per cast. This equates to roughly an average of 74 Chumcaster casts, or 148 non-Chumcaster casts to obtain a Drippler Crippler. Adding cast time plus the amount of time required to kill the Blood Eels means you could likely go through multiple bloody tiers to obtain this fabled flail. This is considerably more effort compared to farming some Souls of Night to create Keys of Night to summon Crimson Mimics for the Fetid Baghnakhs in a Crimson world, which deals slightly less damage against Destroyer, but slightly more against Planterra when compared to the Drippler Crippler. Corruption players can still use a weapon such as the Chain Guillotines from Corruption Mimics to take on the Twins or Prime. Then using those obtained Hallowed Bars to craft a weapon such as the Gungnir, which should still deal more than enough DPS to take out the Metallic Worm. The Dow of Pow can also be obtained considerably easier, it being a crafted weapon. The only annoying part may be having to create a Hallowed or Evil Desert if one or both do not exist in your world. There exists all of these easier to obtain options, and yet the Drippler Crippler could be worth going for since you could take on the next 4 bosses with just this one all-rounder weapon. And the sheer DPS of this weapon usually means you won't need to get a tank setup as good as the ones I have been using throughout this video. So overall, it's really just up to whether you like fishing or not. Thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe for more try informational videos, challenges, and for other random stuff I post. And for anyone wondering, it does not deal more damage to Dripplers, despite being a Drippler Crippler.